Hello and welcome to Robinson Hall Experts Talk. My name is Laura Saunders, Marketing and PR Manager at Robinson Hall. And today, on the 14th of April, we are going to be discussing a podcast from no to yes, winning a planning appeal. I have Abel Bunu, Principal Planner, with me today. He's worked for Robinson Hall for over 8 years, having previously worked for the council and private planning practices. No project is ever too large or small for him. He is highly experienced in preparing planning, design and access statements, defending cases at appeal and handling planning enforcement work. Welcome, Abel.
Thank you, Laura.
So first things first, why do planning applications end up at appeal?
That's an interesting question. Obviously, it's because there is a dispute between the parties. If we get a refusal, most people would think of why the application has been refused. In most cases, we get a lot of clients who request us to see if there are any opportunities to appeal the decision, which is basically challenging the council's decision to refuse the application.
So is there a clear theme though as to why they end up at appeal, or is it just, it can be various factors?
I'd say each case is treated on its own merit.
Okay.
So the reasons for refusal would vary from one case. Some cases are refused because the principle is simply not acceptable. I can give an example of, say, a proposed development in the countryside, which is outside the village or outside the settlement policy area.
Yeah.
Such an application or such a proposal will be starting on the back foot because, in principle, that would not be acceptable.
Okay.
So such an application, if it were to be progressed, chances are it could be refused. So that's one category of an application that could be rejected in matters of principle. Some applications could be in the green belt, where the principle again of the development is not acceptable. The proposal does not satisfy the green belt requirements. But in certain cases, you find that applications are rejected because of matters of design detail,
Right.
or impact on the neighbors in terms of noise generation.
Yeah.
And there could be lots of reasons for rejecting applications by the councils, which then triggers the need to consider appealing the decision. So yeah, that basically varies from
project to project.
From project to project.
So when you get a refusal, at what point should an applicant seriously consider an appeal?
Yeah, this is where an applicant needs to sit down with an expert and assess what the chances could be of winning on appeal. Because the way we approach it at Robinson and Hall is that we first of all get the reasons for refusal, and look at the officer's report, which justifies the reason for refusal. And if we think it's better off for the client to resubmit a repackaged application, then we would advise along those lines. It's not always the case that we would jump on to recommending going to appeal, because in certain cases you actually benefit more by having a look at the reasons for refusal and trying to address those reasons at a local level with the council. There are several benefits to that kind of approach rather than going to appeal, not least the time factor, because we can never we can never guarantee the turnaround time for appeals
Yeah.
because we haven't got any control over the planning inspectorate's workload. So depending on the type of appeal, it can drag on for a very long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially for appeals to do with certificates of lawfulness
Yeah.
or enforcement appeals. I think because they are sort of specialist type of appeals
Yeah.
that can drag on for a very long time, in excess of even 12 months.
Oh, wow. I was going to say, actually, like,
From my
do they
own-
have a deadline? Because obviously with applications, they have a deadline to you provide you with a yes or no. So is that not the same with appeals?
Yeah, that's where the appeal process and the application process they differs.
Okay.
Because with an application, there is a statutory deadline for the council to issue a decision.
Yeah.
If a decision is not issued within that period, there is an option to appeal on the grounds of non-determination, which means the council has failed to issue a decision within the regulated time. But with appeals, it works slightly differently from the application process. Whereas the planning inspectorate will release a timetable, I would say it is a bit indicative in the sense that the actual issuing of the decision cannot be predetermined. All the other stages in the timetable have to be followed strictly, but at the end of that process, for instance, the exchange of arguments with the council,
Yeah.
that is strictly regulated in terms of the timetable.
Right.
But after that,
They can take as long as they want.
the planning inspectorate, I would say they'll take as long as their workload permits.
Right. Okay. That's worth noting. So what proportion of appeals actually succeed and what separates winning cases from losing ones?
That's an interesting one because I know I've said each case is treated on its own merit. The same principle applies with planning appeals. First of all, it depends on what issues are at stake
Right.
in the dispute. If it's a matter of principle, it's quite interesting that when you read different appeal decisions on a similar subject matter, not all inspectors agree on this on the approach.
Right.
So it's very difficult to say there is this percentage likelihood of succeeding in an appeal. Of course, one has to package their case in a very robust manner.
Yeah.
You can't just leave it to chance. You got to do a lot of research and provide as much evidence as you possibly can to the planning inspector.
Right.
So that is one thing that determines whether an appeal is going to succeed or not. So again, in terms of what proportion of appeals succeed, I know the planning inspectorate website has got an update on roughly what percentage of appeals succeed. But from my experience, that doesn't tell me anything about a particular case that I'll be dealing with, because I need to focus on the particular merits of that case
Yeah.
and package the argument that directly addresses the matters in dispute. So I'm not particularly bothered about how many other cases have been decided or have been successful, because in any event, a planning inspector, say if they are presented with an example of a case that was successful in a different local authority area, they'll say, but the policies are different.
Right.
whereas the subject matter might be the same,
Yeah.
but it boils down to the policies that were used to come up with that decision to refuse the application.
That's good advice. So obviously there's been quite a few changes announced in the media recently about appeals, some of which were launched on the 1st of April, and we did write an article about it. So talk me through the planning appeal process, and in particular how the changes launched on the 1st of April will affect the process.
When lodging an appeal, is now a requirement that you've got to have considered, submitting every bit of information that is relevant during the planning application process,
Right.
rather than the previous system where we used to exchange arguments with the council.
Mm-hmm.
If the new change is going to be implemented as announced, it's going to mean that if the application has not been packaged properly in the first place, there's not going to be an opportunity for a second bite of the cherry during the appeal process, because the planning inspectorate is just going to consider the documents that were submitted with the planning application, and no further evidence is going to be accepted during the appeal process. Whereas with the old system, you could submit information that could just assist. In certain cases, it's all to do with the costs associated with submitting a planning application. There could be several surveys that are required.
Yeah.
So an applicant might choose just to submit information that is the barest minimum of information. But if the council is not satisfied with the information submitted, they may not be confident to attach a condition to require or to request further details to be submitted after the permission has been granted. They may want to see that information front-loaded and considered as part of the application
beforehand.
So it becomes a bit risky for an applicant to submit the barest minimum
information,
because when it comes to appealing a decision, you cannot then at that stage prepare that information and send it.
I know they're saying you're not allowed to provide any more evidence, but surely there's going to be instances where you might need to detail,
clarify certain things. Yes, you're quite right. That's where I have lots of problems with the new system, and given that it has just been introduced and we are only maybe a couple of weeks into this new system. No appeals have been tested yet.
Okay.
We haven't got any. It's too early to be learning any lessons from appeals that have been decided, because none has been.
So I guess as we go.
So at the moment, I think every agent out there is waiting to see how this whole new system is going to pan out. But of course, I can see issues with the new procedure if it is implemented strictly in accordance with how it has been set out. Some local authorities do not accept additional information even in response to an objection or a request for more information by a consultee. Well, by a consultee, I mean, like say the highways officer, or environment agency, or those other kind of bodies that are consulted about the application. So if the Environment Agency is not satisfied with the flood risk assessment submitted and they wanted clarification or additional information, some local authorities would not accept additional information. They would give you an option to withdraw the application and seek pre-application advice, or accept a refusal based on insufficient information that would have been submitted. So it becomes very difficult for applicants, because putting together material for an application can be very costly. So you can understand why in certain cases an applicant would submit just the basic information.
Yeah.
And first of all, get the council's responses to whether the principle of the development is acceptable or not before they invest lots of monies in preparing.
The pre-application,
So
I think what you're saying is pre-application inquiries might actually be, the amount of those might increase because of the process with the not being able to add any more evidence to your appeal, because then you get an idea as to whether it's going to be successful. Then you feel like you can spend more money on the application itself, and then hopefully if you submit all the plans and surveys that you require, if you do get refusal, they've already got access to them. It's just quantifying the reasons why it shouldn't be refused, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because when you seek pre-application advice, that's where you get to understand what the council's expectations are.
Yeah.
For a future application.
Yeah.
So anything that is contentious can be ironed out at the pre-application stage. But of course, I've got to caveat that by saying, with pre-application inquiries, at that stage you haven't got the surveys, so the planning officer is restricted in terms of advice they can give you.
Right.
All the advice might be caveated also by the fact that the officer is making a recommendation without the benefit of detailed surveys, which will be expected to be submitted with the
Application
with the
itself.
planning application. But I've come across clients who go the extra mile
Yeah.
and prepare surveys to support a pre-application inquiry, so that the response that we get from officers is quite detailed. It gives you the confidence to proceed with a full planning application.
Yeah.
Because you have provided as much detail as you possibly can. So that then translates to, say, if an application goes on to be refused, and the appeals process that we have been talking about. So if we manage to iron out a few things at the pre-application stage, we expect a positive outcome. We submit a full planning application.
Yeah.
But if the application is rejected, maybe because of something that had not been picked at the pre-application stage, at that point we then consider whether to go to appeal or to repackage the application and have a second go.
Okay. Having an expert by your side throughout the entire process is crucial, because you need that advice, don't you? And you need advice from someone that has experience in various projects, because you can say, well, you've got examples, you've got kind of comparables. You can say, well, we've done something similar. This has worked. This hasn't worked. So yeah, and also it sounds like you are going to have to provide a bit more of a thorough, detailed application whereas previously you may not have because of the changes. How much weight do inspectors give to local opposition versus planning policy when it comes to looking at the application?
When planning inspectors look at appeals, the starting point is to look at how much the proposal satisfies the council policies and the national policies, which are within the national planning policy framework and other planning guidance. And any comments from other parties, like say objections from neighbors, they are relevant insofar as they carry merit in planning terms.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter that a petition has been signed by the neighbors. If the petition is not based on planning merits, the inspector is not likely to give a lot of weight to those objections or to the petition. A petition on its own does not carry as much weight as consideration of the planning merits of the proposal.
Okay.
So I know in certain cases, from my experience, where a petition would have been signed by the neighbors, the expectation is that, well, the planning inspector should honestly reject the appeal. But it doesn't work like that in all cases.
Okay. What would your single biggest piece of advice be before anyone launches an appeal?
I would say consult us.
Yeah.
And we'll go through your case. And if we think there is an opportunity to repackage the application and get a quicker decision from the council, I think that's one option that we may want to put forward to our clients.
Yeah.
We deal with appeals that probably in the first place we were not the agents instructed to submit the application.
Right.
So if the new procedure is implemented, we cannot go back to packaging the application as much as we would have liked to do. So there are cases where we have been instructed in the first place to submit the application.
Yeah.
So because we are now aware that the planning inspectorate has changed its approach, we'll be conscious that we have to prepare an application which, if it's refused, we know we have already provided all the information that is necessary to build a proper argument for an appeal if there is deadlock.
No, that makes sense. I was going to say, do you see, because obviously they're trying to they've made changes to planning appeals where you can't submit any extra evidence. So in a way, would that mean that the process of appeals could potentially become quicker because there isn't as much evidence and documents to review?
Oh, that's an interesting point, because that's one of the reasons why this new process was
Launched.
Introduced.
Right.
In order to address the problem of the turnaround time for appeal decisions. I think that's a valid point to make, because it means the planning inspectorate don't have to go through lots of documents, and we are now in the era of AI, which has already started raising concerns in various quarters, because the planning inspectorate in certain cases have to go through some cases that have been generated through AI.
Okay.
And I think we all know how some of the cases could appear very fictitious. So the planning inspectorate spend a lot of time trying to verify the authenticity of the arguments or the evidence presented before them. And interestingly, the planning inspectorate has already put out a statement about the use of AI in appeal situations. They would ideally want appellants to reference where they got the
Evidence from.
the evidence from, which AI tool they used, because at the moment they are wasting a lot of time trying to verify AI generated evidence.
Content. And that, just touching on that, you did actually write an article, didn't you, not that long ago, about AI and how one of our clients or contacts had approached us
Yes,
with all this evidence, and in actual fact, it was hugely wrong, wasn't it? I think what AI quoted it would cost the client was like less than £1,000, and in real terms, it was a lot more than that. So I think AI has a purpose. It's probably another podcast for another time. And I think there are, AI is useful for lots of things, but I think when it comes to relying on factual advice and professional advice, I can't see it ever replacing an expert, because it hasn't got all the knowledge that, someone that's got many years experience in planning has. So yeah, just be cautious with using it to decide who you use and which route you go down when it comes to the planning world. And if you want more information on that case that I've just referenced, if you have a look at our news section on our website, because Abel did write an article about it. Right, so lots of information to take on board. Is there anything else, Abel, that you wanted to touch on before we conclude?
Yes, the only other additional note that I would want to put across is to do with the preparation of Section 106 agreements or planning obligations.
Right.
And the Planning Inspectorate expects all appellants to submit an executed or completed Section 106 agreement at the time of lodging the appeal.
Right.
So that has got implications on the planning application process, like everything else. Because if the Section 106 agreement is prepared at the time of lodging the appeal, it means one has to work backwards in terms of the timetable. Because an appellant or an applicant would lose their right to appeal after a certain period. For instance, with most appeals, you lose your right to appeal after 6 months.
Right.
Or after 6 months from the date of the decision by the local authority. So if it takes you more than 6 months to prepare a Section 106 agreement, then you might lose your right to
actually appeal it.
To appeal. So if an application requires a Section 106 agreement, it would be advisable to submit that with the application rather than wait for the appeal process. I know, again, it's a matter of balancing so many things, especially costs.
Yeah.
The reason it might take more than 6 months to get a Section 106 agreement together is in the case where a property is owned by multiple parties, or where there is a mortgage. You can never guarantee how the other parties involved are going to respond. It might take a bit of time to get everyone in agreement to sign where they are supposed to be signing. And the Section 106 agreement has to be checked by the council. So it goes through various stages. Well, it could be a swift process whereby the ownership of the property is just under one person or one organization. So that's a word of caution that I would want to put out there.
Yeah, that's good advice because, as you said, not everyone will realise that there's a 6-month deadline to launch an appeal, and obviously, like you said, if there's some documents that will take a lot longer than 6 months, or potentially a lot longer than 6 months to prepare, it'll mean that you won't be able to actually appeal the case. So that's really important. Thank you, Abel, for that. Great. Well, thank you ever so much for listening. There's lots to consider. If you are, or you've already submitted an application and you're waiting for a decision, and obviously it doesn't go the way that you'd like it, then please consider us. If you're looking to obviously put an application together, there's lots to consider. We are here, we've got years of experience, we've got various in-house departments, so we can bounce off each other, so you get lots of different advice for all of our teams. We've got commercial, we've got rural sales and lettings, we've got rural property and business, obviously planning, building and project consultancy, so the list is endless. Have a look at our website for all the services that we cover. If you've got any questions, or you'd like to speak to Abel about appeals or planning applications or pre-applications, Section 106s, feel free to call him. His contact details can be found on our website on the Meet the Team page. Abel Bunu. Thank you for listening today. I've launched various podcasts over recent months and years now. So have a look at our podcast page on our website. There is another one on appeals, and the subject was trouble with your planning application or something along those lines. So we've touched on a few other questions that we haven't touched on today, so it might be worth having a listen to both and any others that you fancy. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you will listen again. Goodbye. Our podcasts are for informational purposes only and are based on the information available at the date of the recording. Listeners are responsible for how they interpret and use the information, and Robinson Hall LLP will not be responsible for any losses, damages or liabilities that may arise from a listener relying on the information given. Listeners should take advice from an appropriate professional which is tailored to their specific needs.